Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 2 of my interview over on Scream Queen Stream with this lovely lady, Miss Jen Wexler. So looking at your IMDb, which also, by the way, I'll link down below, you wear many hats on many of the films that you work on. Producer, writer, director. Is there one that you prefer, and if so, why?
Now I'm obsessed with directing after the Ranger experience because I just loved it and had so much fun. And so, yes, I deeply love directing. That's the one I prefer. But I loved producing, and I really felt that, I'm so appreciative and grateful for all those experiences because they really taught me how to make movies. We're making these small movies, and as a producer, you're right in it. You're with the director. You're facing the challenges that they're facing. You're trying to figure out how to get things done. And also getting able to watch all these different directors that I was producing for, was really helpful in discovering different directors' styles and stuff, and dealing with the cast and aesthetic styles and stuff like that. So it was totally a wonderful experience. And I'm producing Larry Fessenden's movie right now, which is a modern day Frankenstein movie. Called Depraved.
It looks really cool. I was checking that out online today. Obviously, I just came across the poster art, but I was really impressed. Not that I'm not very excited that Larry is directing it, but at first when I saw it on your IMDb, I thought it was your next one.
Oh.
Because, right, depending upon the format that you view it in, it'll either group them by category or by year.
Right.
So I thought I was on the one that's by category, and then I was like, oh gosh, darn it, that's just 2019. So which is your least favorite hat to wear?
Just in terms of, it would be producing, but that's just because producing's hard. It is hard to produce small movies when you don't have the support team. It is hard. You're doing a million jobs. So, yes, but it's very important as well.
So, as a woman in film, it's very common that at some point during your career, you appear in front of the camera. I noticed on your IMDb that you haven't as yet. Mm-hmm. Do you have any aspirations to try that?
I don't have any aspirations to try that. I'm very much excited by writing and directing, and that's kind of where my focus is. And I think actors, I'm in awe of them. I think they're extremely special people that have this talent, and that's amazing. And it's also something I don't want to touch. I feel like I like looking at a story from the macro perspective, and I think it's so cool when actors can look at the character from this micro perspective and really get into the psychology of the character. And that's just not a space that I'm personally interested in going into.
But I love that. I feel so often people who do both sometimes don't realize that. I do, because I've done both, and to me that's the difficult thing, is viewing it from your own perspective and then being able to view it as a whole, right? Because as a character, your world is your immediate peripheral, what you want, what you need, which often and typically in genre films doesn't jive with everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Versus overall, you've got these beats and pacings and character arcs, and you have to worry about all of them, and it's such a different perspective. So it's really refreshing to hear somebody like yourself wanting to focus on one instead of the other.
Yeah. Well, I feel that way. About all the departments. What I think is so cool about making a movie is that all these different people have superpowers, and you're bringing people together, and each person is using their strength and everyone's collaborating to make the movie happen. And it's the same thing with actors, and but what I find fun is bringing everybody together to do that.
Now, looking at your IMDb, I was really impressed with the caliber of talent you've worked with. I'm such a huge fan of Mickey Keating and the films that you've produced with him. Who are some of the colleagues that you love working with, and why?
Wow. Well, I love Mickey. Mickey is so fun. I produced Darling and Psychopaths.
Both fantastic and totally different.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I love about Mickey is you never know what you're going to get. For me, you're going to get a really great genre film, but everything else could be anything. It could be black and white. It could be artistic. It could be experimental. It might not be. It could be terrifying.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Aesthetically, Mickey does really cool, special things, and each one is different. And then just like Mickey's, if you've met Mickey, you know he's like one of the most enthusiastic people you will ever meet, which that makes working on a set with him so much fun because you can't help but also be enthusiastic. Like everybody is so happy on his sets. So Mickey is great, very lovely to work with. And Larry Fessenden is like my mentor. He's the most amazing mentor you could have. He really approaches everything from a creative perspective, from the artist's headspace. You know, he's a producer. When he's a producer on a movie, he's really approaching it from the artist's headspace, which is really lovely if you're directing and you have that person that you can turn to, and they're not looking at it from a budgetary perspective. They're not answering you in terms of like, oh, well, we might not have enough days to do this thing you want to do. He's fully coming at it from the artist's perspective. So it's been really cool. The first thing I produced at Glass Eye was his segment of ABCs of Death 2. And the most recent thing I've done is his Frankenstein movie. So it's been very cool working with him over the past 6 years on all these different projects.
Now, let's talk for a moment to the audience what being a producer on independent film in your experience entails. The reason why I like asking this and getting other people's opinion is because it really varies. You can ask 20 different producers on 20 different independent films, and they're all going to give you a different rundown of like what they did or what that means to them. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what does it mean to you? Yeah,
well, on our films, producing is you're supporting the artist, you're supporting the director, and you're helping them execute their vision. And for us, because, well, the movies that I've been involved with have been small films, you know, I'm not just a producer, but also a line producer and a UPM and a production coordinating. And it's just like doing all those things so that the budget can go towards putting cool stuff on the screen, which has been incredibly rewarding and awesome. But there's different types of producers. There's creative producers. There's, you know, people that help get the movie financed. There's executive producers and whatnot. So all different types. But that's been my experience, is being in it with the director.
We just are finishing up the month of February, which is obviously Women in Horror Month. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you?
I think Women in Horror Month is awesome. And I think it's awesome because it really draws attention to women who are making horror movies. And I guess I feel two ways about this, just in general, when, you know, because there's a lot of women in horror is a very trendy thing right now, right? And whether we're talking about Women in Horror Month or like panels that are like women in horror, there's a lot of those right now. So on the one hand, I wish we lived in a world where we didn't need to point this stuff out and we could all just be treated as filmmakers and gender wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing that we had to think about. On the other hand, we are not there yet as a society. So until we get there, I think it's really cool and really important to be pointing it out and to be highlighting female filmmakers. And it's really important to you know, teenagers, female teenagers right now who are like, oh, maybe I want to be a filmmaker. When I was a teenager, I couldn't point to that many female filmmakers, and I couldn't quite see that was like a path for me. So I think it'll be really cool to have this like new generation of young women who, you know, they can see the path clearly for themselves.
Now, obviously, in the last 2 years, the Me Too movement has hit. Has the Me Too movement, have you seen any difference in any aspect of your career based on the Me Too movement in any way, shape, or form?
I think that it's just been really refreshing that we've all been able to talk about this. It used to be a taboo subject to even talk about. And now it's like women are talking about this and putting it out in the open. And I think, you know, we're all supporting each other a lot more. Like, we're making an active choice to support each other a lot more. In the past, I don't think there wasn't necessarily the awareness that we needed to support each other in the same way. But now there's that awareness. And that's, look at the hard, I mean, not just hard, but like the big movie directors of the 70s, like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Brian De Palma. Like, they were all friends with each other. There was there was healthy competition, but there wasn't, there's only allowed to be one of us at a time. Like, guys haven't had to go through that, but women, they're gonna, like, it's always been that there's an it girl, and we all feel this pressure that there's an it girl, and are you the it girl? Am I the it girl? Like, who's the it girl of the moment? And it's so cool and so refreshing that we're like finally getting out of that mentality, because actually it just keeps everybody down. And actually, so I mean, The Ranger, there's a final girl in The Ranger. Sorry, spoiler, kind of. But the whole movie is about, like, that's like what the movie is about. It's a movie that follows a final girl and discovers her inner workings, and it's a character study of a final girl. So I totally love the final girl trope deeply. I made a whole movie about it. However, recently I've had the revelation that with the final girl, it kind of has deeply, it kind of makes it, and it's another way of making one feel that there's like only one girl allowed to exist. Only one girl is allowed to exist till the end of the movie, is allowed to stay alive to the end of the movie. And when you're watching, as a young teenager, when you're watching these horror movies, you start to ask yourself, like, oh, well, I would be the final girl. I would definitely be the final, like, I'm not the bimbo that's going to get killed early. I'm definitely going to be smart and make the smart choices and be the final girl. And I think that on like a really deep level has kind of turned women against each other also. So maybe someday, I mean, Slumber Party Massacre is awesome because there's like several women that survive to the end, and they all help each other kill the killer. Maybe we'll see more ladies teaming up movies as we continue into the post-Me Too age.
I would love that, but I also love me a good body count, and I'm not going to lie, as an actor who has played the bimbo more times than I can count, I just feel like sometimes you need that in a movie.
No, totally, absolutely.
And also, like, I'm blonde, so I have to die first. I mean, typically, right? Like, my only hope is to dye my hair and not have sex.
Yeah, like, but that's been done many times.
So many times.
I think
so many.
We're in a post-blonde bimbo dies first age.
I hope so.
I think we can be more creative than that.
Fingers crossed. So what are some films that have inspired you?
So, when I was young, I was obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, not the film. And the show played a big role in the way I developed as a person, because I was watching that in that tender age of, the tender time of like 10 years old to 12, 13 years old. For The Ranger, movies that we were very inspired by were like 80s punk movies like Class of 1984 and Repo Man and, of course, Return of the Living Dead. And then, kind of we took the approach of like Evil Dead in making it. And also, like, there's a movie Smithereens from the early 80s. That was Suburbia. And then movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. And yeah. And then, of course, I was very influenced because I was obsessed with them when I was younger, with the late 90s teen slasher movies too.
Oh, which are so great in so many levels.
Yeah.
I just appreciate them differently now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have a very different reaction watching them. I think it's really fascinating what you hit on, like, when you're around the age of 10 or 12, because it's, like, really before life gets complicated, right? Mm-hmm. Not that life's especially complicated when you're, like, 15, 16, 17, but you think it is at the time. Mm-hmm. Like, legitimately. It's not. Like, whether that boy likes you or not does not matter. Like, in the bigger picture.
Right.
When you're mind, it is. But, like, when you're 10 and 11, you really have no responsibilities, like, for the most part, if you're lucky, like, you just are living your best life, realistically.
Right, and you don't realize it.
No.
And everything feels like so dramatic.
I remember like desperately wanting to be 16 and then desperately wanting to be 20. And now I'm like, can I just go back to wanting to be 16?
Yeah, totally.
Thank you guys so very much for watching part 2 of my interview with Miss Jen Wexler. Part 3 is on its way. Don't forget to like button down below and also subscribe. I produce new videos every single week. And if you're looking for more information behind the scenes, priority access, things like that, check out the Patreon. It enables us to make the show.